Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another video. Today's video, I'm filming it a little bit differently. I am a bit under the weather and also missing a fingernail. But this video is going to be a fun one. It is part of my vlogmas, my 12 days of makeup, and this was a suggestion from my friend Heather Austin. So I was trying to come up with video ideas of revolving around the number 12, right? So Heather said, why don't you think of creating your own eyeshadow palette out of 12 existing shades. So 12 eyeshadow shades that you love, but you would put together in one palette. So that's what I did. Now, I have to say, it was a bit tricky. I went back and forth and I found that at first I was just like swatching any old eyeshadow and it wasn't creating a cohesive palette. So I tried to pick some of my favorite shadows, but make it a cohesive palette. Now here's the thing. This is just for fun, right? Heather, if she was here, she would totally tell you, like, just have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. So if I were to recreate this video again, it could be very different. It could be different tomorrow. It was probably different yesterday. But I'm going to go ahead and share with you 12 of my favorite eyeshadow shades, and if I could put them together in one palette, what would I do? If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Kelly, and I love all things makeup and beauty. I love talking. I love makeup. I love talking about makeup. So if you like to chat about makeup too, I would love to have you subscribe and be part of the K Bella fam. But why don't we go ahead and jump into the video? Okay, I just took my watch off. We will be swatching as we go here. So starting with one of the eyeshadow shades that I knew absolutely had to be in my palette. It is going to come from the Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels palette, and if you know me, then you may know that one of my absolute favorite shades from the Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels palette, sorry guys, I'm trying to do this without blinding you, is this shade right here in Fire Butts. I love this shade. It's almost like an old gold shade with a hint of green, a very wearable green for me. So I knew that I definitely wanted to have this one in my collection. With the lighting, it might be hard to see. Let me try and turn my light down a bit. I tried to turn it down just a touch. I'll try and do a little bit darker lighting, and then I will get like a close-up picture or a swatch at the end, but I definitely knew I needed to have Fire Butts. I'll be putting the palettes off to the side here. Now, another thing about me, if you've been here for a while, you might know that I love to set my eyeshadow primer, and my absolute favorite shade to do that comes from none other than the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. The ABH Modern Renaissance palette, it is an old favorite. It has been used and abused and loved. And this shade right here, Tempura, it is more of a satin. You can see I've definitely hit pan. I don't even know if it's going to show up in a swatch. I'm going to try my best to get my finger in there to get a swatch. But it's honestly just like this nice, like, I don't know, like a satin, pinky satin nude shade. Again, I don't know how well you can see it. I'll try and build up the swatch a little bit. But the thing that I like about this is it is more of a satin. It's not a flat matte, and it sets my eyeshadow primer and creates a nice base for the other shadows. So for me personally, I need that in a palette, so I would have to add that one. I probably should like swatch these in some sort of order, but we've already started, so we will go with a shade that I thought would actually play well with the Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels palette. And I love greens. I'm a neutral lover, but if I'm gonna wear a color, greens are my go-to. So reaching into my Charlotte Tilbury Quad in Rebel, the Rebel, I would want to use this shade right here in the top corner. Let me see. I'm trying to get the lighting right, guys. I would want to use this shade right here in the top corner, this green. I bumped the light up again because it looked a little bit dark. I don't know. It's number 2 Enhance, perhaps, but it's this shade right here, which is like a dirty olive shade. I love a good dirty olive. And I feel like you could go in with like, I mean, really you could even put this in the crease, but go in with this in the crease. You could tap a little bit of Fire Butts in the center, or even take this Enhance shade and put it in the outer corner. But I think those two would play very nice together. Another shimmer shade that's high on my list of favorites comes from the Dominique Cosmetics Latte palette, and it is this shade right here in Macchiato. I love this shade. It's one of my favorites. It's almost like a cooler toned, not a silver, but a little bit of a taupe. Now this one shows up nicely in the inner corner as well. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? I hope you guys can see these swatches. Like I said, I'll do a close-up at the end, but I just love this shade. It's beautiful on the lid. It's beautiful in the inner corner. It is more of like a taupey shade, and it really has like a huge pop factor, a huge punch. It's a beautiful shadow. Now, with all of these shimmers that I'm showing you, we're gonna need some mattes, right? So I wanted to pull out my Vive Muse palette because this shade, Mystic right here, is like a really nice, cooler toned, like mauve-y matte shade. It has a little bit of a purple undertone, and I thought, you know what? This shade would be very complementary, both with the greens and some of the other shades that I'm gonna show you. Like you could put this in the crease, you could put the olive on the lid, put that in the center. I just feel like they play really nice together. You could even do Mystic and Macchiato. I just felt like I love the Vive Muse formula. I think the mattes are super creamy and blendable, and I really like this shade. It's very unique, so I wanted to add that one. Thinking of another matte shade, I wanted something that I could use as a transition, just like a basic brown shade. So I reached into my Makeup Geek Cosmetics eyeshadow singles. And this one right here is Beach Please. And I love this one because it's a brown, but it's like a neutral brown. And I felt like this one would go well with the color story to kind of put as a transition. So I would go in first with my transition, build it up with a deeper crease color, put a lid shade on, and I felt like Beach Please was like a nice mixture, a nice combo. For the next one, we're actually going to revisit the Modern Renaissance palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills. I really like an inner corner pop. So these are mostly shadows that I would set my primer with, put on the lid, put in the crease, but I love a bright inner corner pop, and honestly, the shadow that I use all of the time for that is this one right here in Vermeer. Now with Vermeer, you could very well use this on the lid shade as well, but it's very, very light, and it looks really nice in the inner corner. I don't even know if it's gonna show up on my skin. Let me try and build it up a little bit. But it is a very, very like light pink rosy shade. Hopefully you can see it better in the close-up. It's what I like to use for my inner corner pop, so I would want it in my palette. We're gonna switch color stories a little bit. We had some green and olives, but we're getting into rosier tones. So going into my Natasha Denona Retro palette, I would love to put the shade Jude in here. So Jude, I love this shade. First of all, it has such pigment, such a punch, such a pop. And this one is also like, I don't know that it's supposed to be a duochrome, but it looks duochromy because it's a taupe, similar to Macchiato, but it also has like a rosy undertone. Can you see that there? So I feel like it would look great with these like crease shades, with that inner corner pop. You could even put this like on the outer half of the eye and go with Macchiato on the inner half. But this is a beautiful shadow, and I really love this shade. I love my girl Natasha Denona, so we're also going to reach into my Glam palette, which is a favorite of mine, and going into the crease shade in the top row here, I wanted to add this one because, again, it's like another nice brown shade, but it's a little bit deeper than the Beach Please. So do you necessarily need both of these? No, but I feel like I would use the Beach Please as more of like a transition, and I would use the crease as more of a crease shade. And while you are a little bit warmer over here, you get a little bit cooler over here. So honestly, you could take this as a transition and either one of these to deepen up the crease. Since we have this palette out, another one I would want is I would want to be able to add like depth and definition. So I would want to take this lash line shade here. It's a pretty deep shade, but I'm not huge into blacks. It almost looks like a charcoal shade, but this is for all the people who like to deepen up their outer corner, want to make a smoky lash line. It's not a black, it's more like a charcoal gray, but I wanted to add that in there because I thought in a palette that is great to like smoke things out. 2 more shades, running out of arm. 2 more shades. For both of these shades, we will be going into the Vive Cosmetics Essential Palette. Now, the first one that I wanted to reach for in here was this shade right here in Lava Rock. Now, this is a very unique shade. Look how creamy it is. But it's almost like a chocolatey brown shade. Here we go. So you can see here, it's a chocolatey brown shade, but it's a little bit warmer. So while as these two are on the cool side, this is more neutral. We do have some warmer options here to deepen up the crease. Now, I typically like shimmers more than mattes, but I felt like if I was picking an actual palette, I would need the mattes to be standouts as well in order to make these shimmers pop. So I really liked this option as well. Then I was like, okay, so we have some greens, we have some rosy tones, we have a little bit of taupe, and the last shadow that I would want to reach into is I felt like I needed like a gold or a champagne, so I would want to reach into this shade right here in Glimmer. I don't love the formula of Carrot and Thea, but this Glimmer shade is like a beautiful champagne, and I felt like that would be a nice addition to this palette. Can you see it right there? Let me try and build it up. I thought this would be a nice addition to the palette because you can mix the gold with the greens. You can even stick to these like cooler tone shades over here, throw the gold on the lid, and I just felt like, you know what? These are some of my favorite shades, but also in throwing them together, I feel like it makes a cohesive palette. Would this palette be for everybody? No. Would it be for anybody besides me? Perhaps no, but this is the color story that I came up with. So now I'm gonna go ahead and show you a close-up swatch of all of the shades. Firebuds, Tempera. This one is from the Charlotte Tilbury The Rebel. Right here is Macchiato. Mystic by Vive. This one is Beach Please by Makeup Geek. Right here is Vermeer, ABH. Then we have Jude in the Natasha Denona Retro. This one right here is the Crease shade in the Natasha Denona Glam palette, followed by the Lash Line shade. Right here is Vive Lava Rock. And this champagne shade that is not showing up on my skin very well is Glimmer by Vive. So there you have it. These are the palettes that I pulled from. These are the shades I created. I thought this was a super fun video. It definitely was a little bit challenging, and like I said, I feel like at any point in time, I could totally change my mind. And even when I was filming this, there were moments where I thought, wait a minute, do I really want to include that shadow? But I just went with it. It was fun just to play around, honestly. With a toddler running around, I don't often have time to just like pull out my makeup and like play with it and look at it. But you know, we had a swatch party. This is what we came up with, and I thought it was super fun. So if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching. We are in Vlogmas, so I am uploading my 12 days of Christmas every other day on the odd number days until December 23rd. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.